Hi all, we'll just wait for a couple more minutes for people to join and then we will start. Hello everyone, I hope I'm audible to you. So we'll begin this session. Just give me a moment. Okay, so hello everyone, and some of you might already know me. So I'm Payal Das. I'm currently a scientist too at Origin Oncology Limited, and I transitioned to industry this year, very early this year from January onwards, after having completed my PhD last year and doing a short postdoctoral stint for 6 months. Okay, so I'll share my screen and then we can talk as we go along. Can somebody quickly tell me if you can see the screen?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, so today we are gathered here to talk about one of the most often asked questions, at least to me, that how to effectively transition from academia to industry after a PhD or as an early career, early stage researcher. So we'll go point by point, and at any point of time, if you think that you want to add on to it or you think that I have missed something out, feel free to stop me and ask your questions or give your suggestions or whatever you want to share. So we don't have any house rules today, so you can unmute yourself at any point of time. I will prefer if it is an interactive session, but if you want to ask questions in the end of the presentation, that's also fine. Yeah. So I have divided today's session into 5 broad categories based on the kind of questions I usually get and based on my own personal experiences. So we'll start with how to exactly look for jobs and when should you look for jobs. Next point is building your resume. We had a very elaborate session in our previous seminar where I talked about it very extensively. However, today we'll just focus on the industry resume part, and I'll share some points and tips and tricks on how to build your resume for an industrial job. Okay, so next is the referrals. Surprisingly, it is one of the most important parts of job search when you are looking to transition to industry or when you want to navigate from one job to another within an industry. So we'll talk about that as well. Then after you get an interview call, how do you prepare for these interviews? Because these are very different from what academic interviews are. So I'll give you a brief about the kind of questions that are usually asked in an industry interview and what to expect from these interviews. And finally, that's the most important question. I think that's one of the first questions that was asked by most people, that what exactly is the importance of publication when you are looking for an industry job. So we'll cover all these points one by one. And if you think that there is something else to be added on to it, you can always tell me at the end of the session. Maybe I have missed it, but yeah. So feel free to speak up whenever you want to. Okay, so we'll first go for the very first step, the primitive step, that is job hunt or job search for an industry position, and when should you do it and how you should do it. Almost everyone, I assume, knows this. So LinkedIn is one of the most helpful platforms where you can know about different kinds of job or different kinds of job positions that are available out there. Believe it or not, LinkedIn will actually help you a lot. So in case you do not yet have a LinkedIn profile, create your profile, and we'll talk about it a bit more in details in the subsequent slides, and update it as you progress through your academic journey. From the registration, I could see that there are some people. PPT is okay. Wait. Can everybody see the slides or no?
We actually just see your screen and not the slides, actually.
Okay, sorry. I'll just try to something. Wait. Very sorry. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Yes, it's visible.
Now it's visible. Okay, I'm very sorry. I did not see it. I just put it in a presentation mode and I did not see it. Okay, so we'll just briefly touch upon. So these are the broad areas that we are going to cover. And I've just started talking about how to do a job search, when and how you should go about it. Like I mentioned, that LinkedIn is the most helpful platform where you can actually know a lot about jobs, about the employees, about the company as well. So if you do not have a LinkedIn profile or an active LinkedIn profile, just go create your profile and update it as you progress through your academic journey. So some of you might be from masters, in your first year of masters or your second year of masters. So in that case, and probably you'll move on to go on to do a PhD, or maybe you'll apply for jobs. Try updating it as you progress through your career. It doesn't matter if you are transitioning from academia to industry, even within industry and within academia. Try to update your profile, try to talk about what you did, and we'll touch upon how to go about this in the subsequent slide. Once you create your profile and once you know how to navigate on the platform, follow the companies that you aspire to join. These will most likely be the most famous companies or the biggest players in your field. It doesn't matter. Start following them. And like all other social media platforms, once you start following certain companies, LinkedIn itself will start suggesting you other companies that you might not be aware of, but have a similar profile and which might interest you. And who knows, those are the companies where you might end up in. So try to follow as many companies based on your interests, based on your profile, based on your field, as many companies on LinkedIn as you want to. And subsequently also follow the employees of these companies, send them a connection request. And sending a connection request again brings me back to the first point. You have to have a proper professional profile so that people actually accept your connection request. So make it professional, update, talk about what you do, what is your line of work, what are your interests, what are your skills, etc. And we'll elaborate it in the next slide. However, remember, when you are actively doing it, ensure that your time window or the time frame when you want to join an industry is a maximum of 3 months. Like now, if you are suppose in your master's first year or your PhD final year, don't start applying for jobs right away, because the industries usually give a maximum of 3 months. Sometimes it would be mentioned in the job description that they want an immediate hiring. In those cases, do not start your active job hunt very early on in your PhD or when you are just still in masters, etc. So once you make up your mind that this is the time that I want to transition or I want to apply for jobs, you should keep in mind that you have only 3 months. Provided you get a job, you have to join within 3 months. So plan accordingly. But having said that, of course, it doesn't matter at what time frame you start building your profile. You can start connecting with people, networking with people much early on. But remember, the active job hunt should start only like prior to 3 months. Now, creating a LinkedIn profile, as I mentioned, so this is my LinkedIn profile, and this is the first section that is usually visible when you go to somebody's LinkedIn profile. So here, because it's mostly for PhD students, so you should talk about what you did in your PhD. Now, it doesn't mean that you write just one line. It means you have to summarize what you have done in your PhD, what was your PhD about, like I had written. You can also mention any other relevant academic projects, internships, etc., like what you did in your master's, what you did in your bachelor's. If you have something significant that you think can land you a job, or that you think will eventually help you secure a job, or something that resonates with a job description that you have seen somewhere else, mention all those points, what you did. And something that I have missed here, which I should have written in my profile, is what are the technical skills that you obtained when while doing your PhD or while doing your master's or while doing any kind of internships. What kind of technical skills have you learned? Mention that as well. Now, having said that, again, it should not be one line, but it should not be a whole lot like a paragraph as well. Keep it as concise as possible. And you can talk about any other organizational or mentoring programs that you have attended. If you have contributed significantly to any such program, mention that as well. Industries usually look for soft skills of that sort. So also mention that. In my case, it's mostly PhDs of India because most people know me from PhDs of India. So I have mentioned it in my profile. But if you have any other kind of any soft skills or any organizational skills, do mention that as well in your about section. The second part, which is very important in a LinkedIn profile, is your experience, where you basically mention your education, and it comes in a chronological order with the latest being the first part. In this case, I have now my latest is Scientist 2 at Origin Oncology, so I had just cut it out. So this is the part which is the most important part of my experience section, so which is my PhD part and the postdoctoral researcher part. So you need to also here again, you don't have to elaborate on it too much. Just highlight what your PhD work was about. If you are already a postdoctoral researcher, write about what your postdoc work is about in just 1 or 2 sentences. In my case, both postdoctoral work and doctoral work was same, so I did not change it. But just in one line, highlight the main crux of your PhD and your postdoc work. Yeah, I hope you got it. So these are the 2 things in a LinkedIn profile that an HR would first notice. So make it count. And of course, because it's a professional platform, unlike Instagram, Twitter, or anything, keep a check on what you post and whom you follow and what you comment on somebody else's posts, or like how you approach people or how you talk to people, which we'll talk about later as well. So keep a check on it, because these are the things that an HR will pick up when they are considering to hire you as an employee in their industry. It comes very late, but make it count in every way possible. Next, so now we'll move on to building your resume. The focus is just on an industry resume and what it should look like. So this is my resume. Some of you already might have it because it was asked in the previous session, and I had circulated it to the people who had registered. So if you want to have this resume, you can feel free to ask me whenever you want to. So this was my industry resume that I submitted when I started applying for jobs. Okay. So the first thing is, no matter what people tell you, it is best if you restrict your resume to 1 page, maximum 1.5 or 2 pages. Because trust me, nobody would read through the entire resume. They'll only read what they want to read. So now you have to customize it based on the job description. We'll talk about this in the next slide in more elaborate details, but you have to customize your CV in a way that it aligns with the job description that you are reading, or the job that you're applying for. You do not have to explain all your projects in details. Like, I did not mention all the sub points that I had during each of my projects, because eventually it will be a lot of projects that you do, especially in your PhD. You have a lot of like 3 aims, 4 aims, and so on. You do not have to do it. Just mention the main topic, the main heading, and like 2 or 3 lines, just highlight what you did. Something similar to what you do in your LinkedIn profile experience page as well. It's similar, it's just a bit more professional, bit more refined. So you do not have to explain the sub aims unless your sub aim has some direct relevance or correlation with the job description. Next, your skill set, that's the technical skills, is the most important section of your resume. So you should mention it in a place where it readily catches the eye. Preferably, in my case, it's different, but preferably it should be on the left-hand side of your resume because that's where the eye goes first. So try to highlight your skills at the very beginning. That's the only thing probably where which most HR would look at. So make that visible, like readily visible. Mention only those publications that you have already published and conferences or workshops that you've already attended. What you are going to attend or what is under preparation need not have to be mentioned. Save space. The unnecessary details are not required. When I was applying, my manuscript was still under preparation and I did not have anything that was published. So I had no choice. But if you have a choice, if you already have publications which are published and conferences which have already attended, mention those. Too much, of course, and the spacing also needs to be constant so that it looks nicer. It needs to look pleasing enough. Now, putting a photo is unnecessary. I mean, it takes up a lot of space again. So you don't need to put a photo as such. Just mention the contact where you can be easily reachable. Provide a phone number which is readily like where people can call and just get to you. Do not have something very vague on your resume. That is a very important part because that's your first contact. So just mention that part. Then mention any soft skills which you have. Again, this is about the mentorship programs that you might have participated in, organizing events, seminars, etc. Mention that. Extracurricular activities aren't required. You don't have to mention your hobbies and your extracurricular activities if there are space constraints. But if there is space, go ahead and mention it like I had mentioned it. Also, you do not have to provide references in an industry resume. If you are selected, if the company wants to hire you, once you are hired, then you will be asked for references, or just before you are hired, the HR would themselves ask you to provide references and then you can provide those. You do not need to put that in your resume. The best part about an industry interview is that you are judged based on who you are, what you know, and what you can bring to the table. It does not exactly like what other people tell about you does not hold as much weightage as you yourself. So you do not need to provide references in an industry resume. Okay. So now customizing industry resumes, how you should do it. So I just took it up from one of the jobs that I saw on LinkedIn. You'll find the plenty of these on LinkedIn based on your profile. The more and more you start following companies and you switch on the job alerts, you'll be seeing these quite often. So here there is in a LinkedIn page, it usually looks like this. First, they talk about what the company is doing and what is their goal in they just summarize that. Then they talk about the roles and responsibilities. So I've highlighted some part of it just to where we can resonate, where you might be resonating. So here, like you see, that candidate must be able to handle multiple rodent species like mice, hamsters, whatever. So that a candidate must be aware of how to handle rodents or how to handle animals. If you have some of that credibility, if you know how to do it and you have contributed to a project by handling rodent species like mice, hamster, etc., that should be your first skill set that you mention rather than the other parts. You should first mention that yes, handling of mice or handling of rats, that's your first skill set, because this is what the company is looking for. That's their major criterion to select you. So must be able to, then comes a lot of general also, like able to coordinate experiment planning and execution. This is something very general. Like possess good communication skills is also very general. You need to have it, obviously, must be able to follow established protocols, which is also a very generalized, and most of the roles and responsibilities are general comments, but there are certain points which are very critical, like absolutely require it. So this role involves like conducting immunization and viral challenge studies in BSL-2 facility. It might not exactly resonate with what you have done, but if you have worked with viruses, if you have worked in a BSL-2 facility, at least for the biology people, you'll know, mention that part. Because I'm a biologist, so I took a biology example because it was easier for me to explain. So mention that you have handled viruses. That should be like your second or third skill set that comes. So talk about that. You don't have to exactly know what immunization means, but you should know. But the company should know that you are accustomed to handling viruses as well. Then the qualifications, I usually mention that you need 2 to 4 years of academic or industry experiences, of course. That is also very important. Now, if you can pull up all your internships and you can justify that, yeah, I have at least 2 years of experience in terms of like through internships or small mini projects, etc. Well and good. But if you don't, then it's unlikely that you will get selected in this case, because experience matters a lot in an industry. If you do not have the required experience, the number of years or that like the years that they are looking for, it's very rare that you will get an interview call in that case. Okay, so try to look for how many years of experience. In many cases it's actually written 0 to 3 years. So 0 means no experience. In those cases, of course, you can apply for those jobs. But if there is a specific mention, if there is a specific requirement of the number of years of experience, then see whether you have that kind of an experience. Now, knowledge of data entry or analysis tools such as Excel and GraphPad, if these are some tools that you have used, again, that should be your fourth, fifth, like very early on in your skill set, that should be the first thing that you mention. Okay, so this is like a very small, like an example of how you need to customize your industry resume. So whatever the industry wants, put those skill sets in the top. And then you mention whatever else you know. If you do not have enough space where you can actually mention it, leave it. It doesn't matter. Okay, so, but you have to write what you know, the skills that you have, which exactly align with the industry first. So that is my point. The rest of it, you can write, you can leave, it is up to you. So next we'll move to referrals. And here, at least in an Indian context, for an Indian job, if you're looking for an Indian job, your first step is to get referral. Without a referral, it is unlikely you will ever get an interview call. Okay, every company has this internal referral system where the HR sends out emails to everybody in the industry asking, please provide referrals. And only the referrals that are provided by the current employees of the company are the people who will eventually get interviewed, or might not get interviewed as well, depending on the profile, of course. But referrals are the most important part of getting selected, at least for an interview call. So put that effort to network with people, with as many people as you need to, so that these people would be the ones who will eventually give you referrals. So now, this is also mine. So I've just removed the name and the company here. However, this also needs to be a very professional message that you write over LinkedIn. You can write it on LinkedIn. If you know this somebody on Twitter or any other platform, or even through email communication, that's fine. But this also needs some effort. It's like writing an email to a professor for a PhD position or a postdoc position, just that here it will be a very small message rather than a very big one. So keep it professional. Again, do not copy paste messages. Like, do at least customize your message, because this is just 4 to 5 lines and it is just about writing a text message, just a professional text message rather. So do not copy paste messages, improvise, customize, like change it as per like what the first go to the profile of the person that you want to write to, see what they have done. The first thing you need to see is if their profile matches with that of yours, because most likely that is the kind of job that you are looking for. If you are a master's student looking for an RA position in an industry, go to the profile of some of the masters employees who have done a master's and have now come to an industry. See what kind of work they have done. It has to be that at some level there will be some kind of resonance. So see what they did. So talk about that, like highlight that. So that is how you will build connections. That is how the other people who have similarities with what you are doing, or what the other kind of company that you are in, that is how you will build connections. That is how your connection requests will get accepted, and eventually you will be the one also judging it like that. So so do not copy paste messages. Talk about the similarities, or at least talk about the similar kind of profiles that you have. Mention if they are already PhDs, that means they are doctor, or depending on what they use, if it is already mentioned, mention doctor, Mr., Miss, whatever the last name. But in one case, I will tell you an example where I got a message where it said, dear esteemed colleague. I mean, I'm not a colleague of that person, and why esteemed colleague? This is very vague. Do not generalize this. Okay. So mention, like in this case, I wrote hello, that it was his name. So do that, make it a bit more personal, but at the same time, keep it enough professional. So now, why you are writing that message? If there is already a job ad posted which you have come across, and now you know this particular XYZ employee works in that company, and you want that person to give you a referral, so talk about that. First, introduce yourself and talk about why you are writing that message. In this case, there was no job ad given, at least on the LinkedIn page. So not all companies, again, give ads on LinkedIn pages, but it will be there in their own website. So also look at the websites, okay? Not just the LinkedIn jobs that are given. So write about why you are writing the message, that you are interested to transition to industry, or that you came across this particular job that you are interested in and you think that your profile fits that job. Write about that. It needs to be short. Your intention must be very clear. You don't have to make friendships with these people. Just say that this is what I came across, and I've been looking to make a transition to industry, and I would love to know if there are any opportunities suitable for me. If there is no job description, if it is already mentioned, you can just simply politely ask if it is possible for that person to connect you to other people in order to know more about the work culture. You can ask that person itself what is the work culture, and if he or she would be kind enough to provide a referral because you think that your profile suits the job description that has been put up. So attach your resume only if you are aware of the job openings. Otherwise, you don't have to bother, at least in your first message. You can attach the resume in the first email and ask them, do you think that this fits I think it fits the job description, the job profile that has the job opening. But whether you also think like that, and if you think that, yeah, I could be a good fit, can you just provide a referral? So very simple, 5 to 6 lines, or maybe like 10 lines or so. Write about it, but make your intention very clear. So make it professional, but also personal, in the sense that it does not need to be a general message or a general email. Yeah. So I hope you got that. Now, the most important part of a referral is that a referral can get you an interview call, but it does not guarantee your selection to the company. So the only thing that a referral does, which is the first step towards getting a job, is getting the interview call. With that referral, you might get an interview call. You might not get an interview call also. That is for various several reasons. Your profile might not be an exact fit and all of that. But referrals are the first step for you to get an interview call, But just because you got an interview call doesn't mean that it will guarantee your selection. For that, you have to work hard, you have to prepare accordingly. Next, so now that you have asked for a referral, you got your referral. Now comes what happens when you get that interview call. So usually there are 3 rounds in a job interview: the technical, presentation, and the HR round. In some companies, there could be 4 rounds where your technical round is divided into 2 rounds, a general technical round and a more specific round where you are asked questions exactly based on what the job description has written about. So that could vary. The 3 rounds could also vary in terms of when it comes, like the HR round could be your first round, the technical round could be your last, and so on. So in generally, it goes on as the first stage is your technical round, the second stage presentation round, the third is final is the HR round, but it can vary from job to job. In my case, this was the pattern, so we'll talk about it in this point format. So now coming to the technical round, to more than knowing what the scientific question is and how you solved the scientific question, it is more about the techniques that you have used in case those techniques didn't work, like a particular experiment failed, what went wrong, and how you troubleshoot those experiments, or how you have troubleshooted those techniques. That's the most important part, and it goes deeper and deeper and deeper into the technical part. If you can answer the first basic questions, it will keep going deeper and deeper, to an extent where you might think that, oh my god, I have never thought about this. So it is more about the techniques. It is not about your analytical skills as such. It is more about your technical skill and your technical knowledge on how you will troubleshoot if something goes wrong in that particular technique. And there could be several reasons, like why a technique won't work, why an experiment would fail. You might know 2 or 3 points, but there could be other points as well. So you have to read about those techniques very well. Read thoroughly about all the techniques that you have used. In case you have forgotten something and there is a lot to read, do not mention it anywhere in your resume or when you are introducing yourselves or whatever. Don't. You can leave it out if required, but whatever you say, you know, whatever you have claimed in your resume that these are the things that I know, you need to know the nitty-gritties of every technique that you have been a part of or that you have performed. The most important part of a technical round is the question, and this is often asked, and this is the most difficult question, that how will you connect your work, your current work, in this case I have written the PhD work, with that of what the company is doing. How will you connect it? And this connection is very hard to make if you have done something very different from what the company is doing. So think about it. Think in what terms you can connect, or you can bring some commonalities between what you have done, what you know, and what the company that you're applying to is doing, on what their goals are. If you can make that connection smoothly, it is very likely that you will go to the second round, if this is your first round, that is, or you'll get the job if this is your last round. So this is the most important question, and you have to think very, very, very hard before you sit for the interview. That is the first thing that you need to do, that you have to think in what terms your PhD work or your master's work or your postdoc work connects with what the company does. Next comes the presentation round. It is usually 30 minutes, or in some cases it can be 15 minutes. So in case of presentation round, it does not need to be a proper, like, a PhD defense presentation or a master's thesis defense presentation. It need not be like that. Make a presentation on all the projects that you are confident about. Now, starting from bachelor's until PhD or postdoc, whatever you know, whatever you have learned, make a presentation of all the projects that you are confident about. You state how you will go here. You'll first state what the problem statement is. What was your hypothesis? What are the experiments that you performed in order to test your hypothesis? What were your observations and what are your conclusions? And they have to be written in a very simple and lucid language. You might be well aware of the PhD work that you have done. You might be knowing the nitty-gritties of everything that your PhD work entails, but the people who are listening to you might not know anything about it. So you have to bring everyone on the same platform. So it is not necessarily a very technical, like a very scientific kind of a presentation. It needs to be very simple. It needs to be understandable by everybody who are there on the other side listening to you. So make it simple, make it lucid. Don't put too many texts in a presentation, just like this particular slide. Don't put so many texts there. It is usually preferred that if you use schematics to explain what you did, how you did, what was the rationale behind doing this. So schematics are preferred because that is what people mostly relate to. Pause when you are talking. Just don't go in the same tone throughout for a 15 minutes. Just don't make it boring, because for most people it is like this is a new topic. They might not, if you are a biologist, you will be interviewed by biologists, so they will have the textbook knowledge of certain things, but they won't know what you know. So make it interesting enough. So pause, set the tone right, do voice modulations so that they are at least listening to you and not sleeping during your presentation. So do that. Connect again in the presentation round. Also, it is important that you bring some connection with how your work or what you have achieved so far, the technical skills, the analytical skills, here everything, how it is relevant to the job that you're applying for. And in the end, summarize all the technical skills that you have like experience that you have now you have. Bring all of them on the same platform to let them know that these are the things that you are good at, and these are the new things that you are going to bring to the table. And those technical skills are those which are not mentioned in the job profile itself, but at some time might be required for them. So mention all of it in the end. And finally comes the HR round. In your HR round, you need to be very honest. Don't try to fake it. Don't make up stories. Do not do that. If they ask you to introduce yourself, your introduction is beyond what you have written in your resume and your academic journey. You, of course, you'll talk about it, but you have to talk about all those things in a way that it doesn't sound like you are reading your resume. So your introduction needs to count. It needs to have that personal element as well. Don't just talk about that these are the things that I did, that you did, these are the PhD and everything. Talk about also the organizational skills. Talk about your mentoring skills, or if any, what kind of conferences you went to, what did you do there, did people come to your, if you have presented a poster, did people come to your poster, how did you tackle them? All those things mention that. Talk about your soft skills, because HR round is mostly about how you behave in front of other people, how you would be as a team player. So talk about your soft skills. Talk about situations. If you have ever handled conflicts in your lab or in your academic journey, talk about it, how you resolved your conflicts. So that is something that HR is interested in. They are mostly looking for a team player, because in an academic setting, you have your own individual project, and it is your own individual work that gets you the degree. Of course, you collaborate with other labs or other institutes and all, but at the end of the day, a PhD work is your own work. It's a very isolated work if you have it that way. In case of industry, nothing is isolating. You have to work in teams. You have to work at par with your team. So that is what the HR round is about, to assess if you can be a team player. The salary expectations can be tricky, very tricky, because they will ask you in your HR round, what is your salary expectation? So before you sit for an HR round, talk again, go back and talk to the employees of the company. Ask them very politely. It's not a very rude question if you think so. Just ask them, what is the thing that you expected? And tell them that, this is my first time applying for a job and I don't know where to set the bar. So just tell me what I should say, what needs to be said. Don't ask them what is your salary, of course. Just ask them what is the expectation that I should put in front, and then talk about that salary expectations. Okay. And finally, the importance of publications. I have just one slide for it to tell you that publications are always a bonus. It tells people that you know how to write, you know how to rationally think, how to design a hypothesis, what to do, and how to come to conclusions. Of course, they are a bonus, but it is not mandatory. It will not hamper your chances if you do not have a publication, especially for companies which are product driven. In a biology field, it can be those are mostly pharma companies which are making drugs. So it's a product. It could be companies where they are making your antibodies or cell culture reagents or viral particles, etc., etc. So these are all product driven companies. They're mostly interested in building the product, marketing the product, and selling it. In that case, your publications usually do not matter. I did not have a publication, but I still got the job. Of course, there are exceptions also, but remember that publications are not mandatory, particularly for product driven companies. Now, there are some companies which have a very strong tie-ups with academic institutes, and they tend to publish papers. If you apply to those kinds of companies which actively publishes papers, of course they will expect you to have publications because that is what they want, that is what they need. But if it is a very product driven company and they are only interested in selling their products, publications won't matter, not that much. Again, to reiterate, you are judged based on your own knowledge, what you know. What others know about you comes secondary. How you troubleshoot your problems, your ability to think on feet and actually solve a problem, that's what you are judged on. And your adaptability to work in a collaborative environment, that's what you are judged on. And all those 3 rounds will assess these qualities in you. So try to focus on knowing, on honing your technical skills, on understanding what you are doing, why you are doing. And if things go wrong, it might not have gone wrong for you during your PhD or during your master's. But you need to know, if this thing goes wrong, what are the possibilities that it might go wrong and how do you troubleshoot those? So that is what you need to focus on more rather than references or publications as such. And with that, I'll conclude. So now we'll go on to questions. I'll probably should stop sharing. Yeah. So anybody wants to ask questions, because I can see a lot of chats already.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask one thing. Like right now, I'm working in a company.
Yeah.
It's called Green Enterprises. So,
Mhm.
and in future, I'm planning to go to like UK and come back to India after my PhD.
Mhm.
So, like, like how can I apply? Like, is it something like from UK to India transition is difficult or something? Like,
You are going to UK for a PhD, right?
for a master's and PhD, my program is Master's by Research in Translational Oncology,
Okay. Mhm.
and then I'll pursue my PhD.
Okay.
So
The
I was one.
transition difficult in terms of the country itself, it might be difficult, like in general difficulties that you face when you go to a different country. But in terms of work culture, the industry have a very different kind of a work culture as compared to what an academic culture is. That is different, of course, but in an academic setting it's more of, so you are talking about the different, the it's this transition from industry to academia here. So the thing,
No,
kind of,
it's quite the opposite, like transition from academic to industry. Like after I complete my PhD from UK and I come back to India and I want to join an industry.
okay, you
So
no, that is fine. Like I came back from Germany to India, so
okay. No, like was there something additional test or something you have to
no,
prove
no, no,
yourself?
no, 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 there is no additional test as such. The adjustment is only based on the, the environment you are in, because if you stay for a very long period of time in a different country, you adapt their culture and all those things. But
Hmm.
like that, like personally, it's a change and it's an adaptation. But in terms of the work and everything, you won't be like, you will be judged just like any other person.
Okay.
Let's
And
just,
ma'am, just one last thing.
yeah,
Like I'm applying for, this is a bit academic side. I'm
yeah.
just applying for some part-time work at in UK for the
Okay.
research positions.
Hmm.
So like I'm going in September 2023. So I
Okay.
just wanted to know, should I like start applying for now or wait 3 months before the course starts? Like I'm just asking as a rough idea, as you have already been out, seen the foreign education, how it works. So I was asking, according to your experience, what do you think I should
So
do?
I would tell you that if you want to do part-time work or a full-time work, whatever, you should apply at a time when you know that this is the, I will join in a month. I can join in a month or in a month or two. You need
Okay,
to have that. If you should not apply like 6 months ahead in time or 1 year ahead in time, it doesn't work like that. At least for an industry, it won't work like that.
okay. Like I have an offer from University of Sheffield. I've been applying from past 1 month, maybe 1 2 months,
Mhm.
but I've not been getting a good response because every time I take that, I say that I don't have a visa right now, but I'll be arriving in September. So is that the thing which is coming in middle?
For abroad, yeah, visa will play a very important part of it. So yeah, especially, but in case when you go for a PhD or a master's program in a different country, usually the university help you.
Hmm.
They help you to get your visa faster. In most cases, that is the thing. But in
Okay.
case of a part-time job, that might not be the case. You have to first, so it is better that when you are very secure, like you have a visa, you can work. Because
Mm.
sometimes, because I had a visa which did not allow me to work apart from my university. That was
Okay.
the clause. Okay, that I cannot work somewhere else, I cannot get money from somewhere else. So
Okay.
that was a clause in my visa itself.
Hmm.
So you should first actually clarify what your visa says.
Okay. Okay.
So that
O-
is something very important, especially if you are going abroad.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for your help.
Okay, there are a
Hello,
lot of
ma'am.
people, yeah, who have raised hands. Yes. Hi.
Yes, my name is Prakash Aloy. I'm
Hi.
now just submitted my PhD thesis
Yeah.
in the area of in vivo drug discovery.
Mm-hmm.
So I just tried my desired my this one specialization means primary cell culture. I have a screening of like natural product
Mm-hmm.
and nanotechnology, material science. So I am interested too for industry job after my PhD.
Mm-hmm.
So what should I approach to apply for this job and how to start? Just means I have a gap of like 3 months from in generally in our institute.
Mm-hmm.
After submitting my thesis, it will take around 3 months for the final defense.
Okay.
So now I'll just start searching in and making my LinkedIn profile. But how to search based on my research area to jobs?
Okay. So first thing is, because you are also a biologist and I'm assuming you know what primary cell culture is, cancer biology is, nanobiotechnology. I'll give an example. So the
Yes.
companies that you will like, if I have to say the biggest players in your field, which is also my field, will be like Novartis or
Yes.
Pfizer or Moderna. Okay. The
Yes.
pharma companies, the biggest players. That's what. So start from there only. Start
Okay,
from
okay.
the biggest players. Start following Novartis. Start following Thermo Fisher Scientific. Start following Moderna, Pfizer, all of those.
Okay.
Okay, so start with that. Follow the companies first. The people come later. Follow
Okay.
the companies in the because these are the biggest players. They will have enough money to put LinkedIn job profiles as job openings. Look at what they have, what current openings they have. They might not have anything. It happens, right? So start following them, go to their website, see if there are some job openings that are relevant to you. Now in case of industry, unless they have a suitable candidate, the position remains open. It's not like an academic setting where there was a particular time frame that within this time frame you need a particular candidate. So in industry that is a bit flexible, but once they get a person, then only they close it. So otherwise it remains open.
And
So
one thing, ma'am,
yeah.
regarding job search, if there's a apply for the directly to the go to the industry portal and make like a online form, and sometimes they're give to directly send a resume to the HR position. So
Yes,
so
exactly.
which both have to be done, or one have only one? If there is a both option, like sometimes I see can understand means they are directly tell to send the CV to this one HR person. They give him like email address, or sometime if you'll go and search in like Sinjin, there is a like portal is there,
Yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
will be more convenient.
The more convenient is always a referral. If an employee goes and gives your resume to the HR, that is more
Okay,
like
okay,
more chances of you getting an interview call. I'll put it that way.
okay.
Yeah. So specifically in India, the referrals is something that will get you an interview call. Without a referral, it's very, very, very unlikely. For
Okay.
other countries, there could be a possibility that you apply. So for those countries, but for other countries also, for abroad, it is usually mentioned you can write to this person, you can send your CV. Why don't you just first connect with that person, or on LinkedIn itself, or on, if you know, from other platform, whatever, just connect with that person, talk about your work, tell them that, hey, I sent you my CV or I sent you my resume. Just say,
Means
see what.
means you want to say the HR person,
Yeah,
HR or
yeah, the HR person,
yes.
yes.
Yes. And one thing, ma'am, this one regarding the CV, if you
Yeah.
based on this our PhD CV, it will take 3 pages because of like we have a like list of publication, and I have a mm, research experiences also before PhD like that, and so it is whatever you showed in this PowerPoint, it should
Yeah.
be limited to only 1 page only.
It is better if it is limited to 1 page. So even if it is going for 2 pages, if you have enough, like a lot of research experiences and a lot of projects that you've been a part of, one
Yes.
thing that you can do is that you just mention first
Okay.
and start writing details. So it needs to be, your skills need to be on the first page.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hi, ma'am. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask regarding the posts that come out in the company. So they normally ask like 3 4 years of experience in industry. But if I'm coming as a PhD student, I wouldn't be having an industry experience. So I'm still eligible for such positions, or they wouldn't consider me.
So after a PhD, your positions start from scientist positions, like the junior scientist, then comes senior scientist and all of that. So if it is mentioned that you require, like, if the position is like masters with 2 to 4 years of experience, you are still eligible because you have a PhD. Okay, so your PhD is considered as an experience.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. In case it's written PhD and 2 to 4 years of experience, that means you need either a postdoc experience or a different industry experience. So it depends on what is written in the qualifications. In most cases, at least for abroad, it's usually mentioned masters with so and so. In that case, you're eligible. But if it is mentioned PhD with so and so experience, number of years, then you need to have, you cannot be, they don't want a fresher PhD. They want a PhD as well as some form of experience. It could be a postdoc experience, it could be another industry experience.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So there are more people who have raised hands.
Hi, ma'am.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Akshata.
I had a question. Whether or not having a postdoc will raise the position that you're going to end in an industry, or is it like starting from scratch again?
Can you just repeat the question because your voice is a bit.
No, what I wanted to ask was, if I'm gonna do a postdoc after my PhD and then transition to industry, will I be going for a higher rank, or is it like again starting from the scratch, like just the PhDs?
So usually if you have significant postdoc experience, you start from a higher rank. Now, higher rank again also doesn't mean because for an industry, you are still a fresher. Okay, you have to remember this. Doesn't matter if you have a PhD or a postdoc. For an industry perspective, of course, they give you a higher position as compared to what they will give a master's student or a bachelor student, but you are still a fresher. So it also depends on the company. If they have already mentioned that they want a person in a junior level position and you are applying for that position, it won't be that they will just consider you for a senior position. It means basically they don't have a senior position open. But yes, having a postdoc can give you a will give you a senior position, because I got a senior position. I applied for a junior position, but they also had a senior position open. So it worked out in my case. So
Okay, another question, whether or not the university where you have a PhD, that tag will be considered, or is it just the skill and your knowledge?
no, in an industry, the tag is not something that is considered. It's mostly your knowledge and skills.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Once again, I have one doubt. So
Yeah.
just you tell about the fresh PhD actually.
Mhm.
So if you go for any scientist position where there is a like you tell about the additional experience of like 2 to 4 years.
Mhm.
So what you suggest it will be do a postdoctoral experience from the outside of India after PhD, and after the transition into the industry it will be more feasible, or directly go to the fresh PhD.
No, it actually depends on what kind of job you are applying for. Just doing a postdoc, at least from an industry perspective, it doesn't really matter if you have a postdoc or not. If you have a PhD, that's good enough. For
Okay.
2 to 4 years of experience, if it doesn't matter if you're going abroad or if you're in your own country doing it, those things actually do not play huge amount of role. Only if there is a lot of competition, that there is somebody as equally as good as you, then comes all those things, that whether this person has a PhD from abroad, postdoc from abroad, whether this person has 10 publications, the other one has 8 all those they are very secondary, but it's very unlikely that happens.
Okay.
So these things are all secondary, whether the abroad, India, it doesn't matter. And whether you have a postdoc or not also doesn't matter. The only thing, like I told Akshata, that if you have a postdoc, you have done 1 or 2 years of postdoc, there is a possibility that you will get a higher position, and not like, you won't have to start from scientist 1. Suppose you can get scientist 3 if it is open again.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so
Hello,
yeah.
Dr. Das.
Yeah.
Thank you for the elaborate presentation. I have a couple of questions, but I'll be quick.
Yeah.
So, when we apply, at the time of applying, do we need a PhD certificate in hand, or one can also apply after submission of thesis? For example, in Germany, you get this Promotionsbescheinigung, and then you get your PhD certificate later. Maybe, I don't know, depending on university, a month later or something. So can we apply immediately after submission of thesis, or only after we have a certificate? This
No, you can, if so, at least in India, sometimes it takes a long time, right, to get that degree certificate. You need to have the degree certificate when you are joining the company. That's it.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And sometimes in the job description and criteria, if you do not fulfill all the criteria that they have, like of course they have sometimes mentioned that having something XYZ is a plus,
Yes.
but how much of it should you actually qualify for? Because sometimes you feel that, okay, my profile is matching 80%, but some things are also new to you. For example, if a company is doing something with respect to immunogenicity or vaccine production, but they also need having an experience in LCMS. But for example, I have never worked with LCMS, but I have the other requirements. So let's say 2/3 of the requirements or more are fulfilling. So in that case, should I apply or not, or it should be like 100% match?
No, no, no. Apply. It doesn't matter. Like in my case, if it matches like 2/3, if it matches 80%, apply.
Okay.
Nobody has 100% of the knowledge of what is mentioned in the job description. Even in my case, for you it's LCMS, in my case it was flow cytometry. That was something I have never done. I didn't even know what flow cytometry, apart from the definition, didn't even know what it was. So but
Okay.
flow cytometry was a criterion, but I knew everything else apart from flow cytometry. So
Okay.
yeah, so it is an advantage. If you have like 80% of it, go for it. It does.
Okay.
Yeah.
And another part was I wanted to know this technical part about the
Yeah.
hiring process when you submit your CV and cover letter.
Yeah.
So in Europe, for example, and maybe also in US, they use this system called application tracking system. So first sub part is, do they also use it in India? And second thing is, sometimes I have seen that the cover letter is perfect. Also, I have put in keywords, like not faking it, but they are actually there, and I have included it as part of matching profile, but it just gets I wouldn't say rejected, but still you don't get selected there. So I just want to know, how can you let's say bump up your chances of getting through the HR? Because if your CV itself and cover letter doesn't reach the HR and gets rejected by the automated system, then of course you will face difficulties.
So at least in India, HR handles it personally, because so that is why where the referrals come from. You don't really have a tracking system for most companies. Okay, there is no tracking system. It's some employee XYZ will give the HR ABC your profile. They'll just look through it. They'll see what matches, what doesn't match. They'll send it to the hiring manager, and if the hiring manager wants to interview you, they'll interview. Okay, that's how it works in India mostly. There is no tracking system as such. And once the hiring manager has interviewed you, it's on the onus is on them to take you to the other rounds or disqualify you or whatever comes after. For other countries, I'm not very familiar with how the tracking system actually works.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So for India, there is not like a tracking system as such.
Okay. And would you, as a beginner, for example, would you target the startups more, or would you go for big companies? For example, I know that companies like QIAGEN or like Roche or like many other big companies, I have heard, but I don't know in person, that your chances of getting into a company and of course gaining an experience and then transitioning to a big industry is more than like applying to a bigger company with no experience. So I don't know how far this is true in India or abroad.
So this also actually depends. Okay, this is a very relative, very individual kind of thing. If you want to go to a startup, so big companies have everything in place. Like there is a system that this needs to be done. Your job is very set. These are certain things that you have to do on a weekly basis or something. These are your goals. You have to fulfill those. In a big company, that's how it works. That you are given some goals. You have 3 months. You have to accomplish these goals. If you're not accomplishing those goals, then it's a problem. Then you have to have those kind of talks. But in case of a startup, there is nothing set as such. You are doing everything. You are not just accomplishing your own goals, but you have to also do other managerial work, other kinds of financial work, which you do not have to do in a bigger company, because the financial part, the HR part, your salary thing and everything is those are compartmentalized. Everything is compartmentalized in a big company. In a startup, you are doing everything. So it depends on actually where you want to go to. It is a personal choice, I think. It won't matter. Like if you go to a startup and then you transition to a bigger industry, it won't hamper your chances anywhere, as long as you are a fit candidate for the whatever company you are applying to. Or the other way around, it won't matter so much. It is mostly about what you know and what the company wants and what you are bringing to the table. Are they on the same page, on the same platform? That's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, so there is Piyush has written something. I'll just quickly read this once and then come back to other people. So thanks for the talk. I did my PhD in theoretical physics recently and have been applying to data science jobs since 2 months here in Europe itself. Although I'm receiving interviews, but the rate is quite low. I passed the final round of a company, but the position was cut down due to budget. My PhD itself isn't directly related, so I learned the required tech skills during my final year, which is great. You can also do, people can actually do that too. If you are really sure about joining an industry and you think there is a particular skill that the industry requires, but you don't have, prepare yourself for it. Give yourself enough time to, learn those things, just like Piyush did. So what else could I do to navigate my job search? Or should I join a postdoc as of now? So Piyush, it completely depends on you. It also depends on the visa, of course. You cannot be unemployed for a very long period of time in a foreign country. My suggestion would be, talk to employees of companies that you are applying to. Okay, it is better if you talk to them. Ask them what are the things that the company looks for. What are the expectations? What is the work culture? Don't just directly ask for a referral or something. Just talk about what is it that the company wants. What are its expectations? I think that will be a better approach. Do that. At the same time, you can also apply for a postdoc position if you want to, have that financial security and stability. I totally understand that. So apply for join a postdoc position, but at the same time, try to network more with people and ask what is required. For Europe, it might be a little different from how India functions in industry, but the main picture remains the same. So talk to employees. I think it will be instead of me, you should talk to employees and ask them what are the expectations of a company, what they are looking for. I hope that answers your question to a little extent. Okay, so Dipti has asked, what are the differences between transitioning to industry as a master's student versus a PhD student? I ask in terms of pay, rate of promotion, job profiles, and ease of selection. In terms of pay, it is obviously lower if you are joining as a master's student. Somebody who joins as a after a master's versus somebody who joins as a PhD, your pay is lower. Your position is also lower. Rate of promotion, it depends on how you are performing. In some industries, your promotion happens only in a year, or only after you have spent like 2 years in the company, then only you are eligible for promotions. So in that case, after master's, 2 years of, maybe research associate position, and it starts with research associate position 1 in most companies. Then you go to 2, then you go to 3. So yeah, the rate of promotion could be slow for some companies, but again, it varies from company to company. This is something you can actually ask the employees once you are selected. Okay, if you want to, that how is the rate of promotion? But yeah, pay is lower. Rate of promotion varies. Job profiles. Once you are already in the company, there you will have a lot of scope, to improve your job profile. Not improve, like, I mean, to add into your skill set. You can explore a lot of other techniques. You can explore a completely different fields. For example, you join as a research associate, you are working in an R&D, but you are more interested, in marketing and sales, for example. That is something that, it's something that interests you. In an industry, you will have room to actually go and learn those things, those kind of additional skills. You can learn, like, if you want to move into consultancy at some point, industries will provide you that room, that you have enough time to actually hone other skills. Like Piyush said, that data science, you might join as a as a cancer biologist or something that you are doing, but you want to also explore other fields like data science, which is also very relevant in a biology field. So you go ahead and you have that room to learn, and then you can navigate easily. So it also depends on what you want to do and how you want to, like, the kind of effort that you want to put in, what kind of job profiles you want. But once you are in the industry, the navigation is usually easier. I mean, you have more scope, you will be more aware. Like, from the outside it's very confusing, but inside you will see that there are people who are taking courses, and there are people who are learning different other things, something very different from what your profile is. So that depends on what you want to do. And ease of selection, so for companies, if they are looking for a junior level position, junior student, ease of selection, like if a master's is enough, of course, and you are good enough, then they'll take you. If the selection itself says that, masters and 7 years of experience or something, that can also happen, like a 7 years experience. So it's better that if you have a PhD there, because a PhD is also like 5 to 7 years. So that depends on what the job, what they want. If they want a junior level person, if they want somebody who just has a master's, easy, provided you nail the interviews, of course. But if in most cases, after a master's, they usually expect 2 to 3 to 4 years of experience also. So you have to see where you fall. As a master's student, you can, if you do not have an experience and you're applying and they allow you to apply, sometimes you get a trainee position and not a research associate position as well. Trainee position is even lower. But from a trainee position to a research associate position, the rate of promotion is fast. I think a year or so. So that is also possible. Does it answer your question, Dipti? So are there any training programs for a person transitioning from academic to industry? For example, Sanofi has such paid internship programs after which they might hire you. Asking this because for freshers to join corporate would be different than academia. Siddesh, I'm not very sure about the training programs. If there are any like public professional training programs that are available as such. I'm sorry. Can you comment on work-life balance in industry in comparison to academia? Especially would be good if you could highlight with example, reasons and benefits of moving to industry. What does your day look like in industry as a beginner? Okay, good question. So because you have asked for an example, this is not my personal example, but I'll tell you about one of my colleagues. So so since I'm assuming you are a biologist, so you have cells. Suppose you have cells, you are working on an experiment with those cells. Now the cells also keep changing, like you do a passaging of cells, right? If you don't follow it, then I'll give you a different example. But if you follow it, Siddesh, so it will be. So cell number 1 you are taking, you do an experiment. Now your experiment is 7 days long, which means your termination, whenever the experiment ends, would be at some point a weekend. But it doesn't mean that you are working for all 7 days. You work on the first day, you work on the 5th day, and you work on the 7th day. Now, if you don't plan your experiment, then your 5th day or a 7th day can come on a weekend. Okay. So in this case, what happens is you can, even if you have the pressure to generate data, nobody expects you that you terminate your experiment on the 7th day, on a weekend, which is like, so you plan your experiment in such a way that your 1st, 5th, and 7th are coming all on the weekends. If it is not coming on the weekends, so you don't do the experiment at all, and nobody will tell you anything. If they ask you why didn't you do the experiment, you can say that one of the days I had to come on a weekend and I did not want to come on a weekend, and nobody will scold. So in an academic setting, this never happens. This will never happen. You can take whenever you if you want to take leave, you can take leave and nobody will question you why you want to take a leave, how long you are gone. Of course, there is a particular number of days that you can take leave for, obviously, but nobody will like really poke into your personal life and ask why do you need a leave, why didn't you work, why don't we have the data. Yes, at some point of time you have client based projects where you are expected to generate results. In those cases, yes, you have to put some effort and maybe the balance gets a bit shaky at that point of time, but in general nobody will actually penalize you if you're not working on a weekend, if that asks if that solves your that answers your question.
Thank you very much. Actually, that was a really elaborate answer. So, with respect to that again, that question again. So, for example, if you don't so like in academia, where we were expected to start with something and then end with something. But for example, in industry, is it like, for example, if your immediate supervisor or whoever is responsible for looking at this project as the end person, so if he realizes or she realizes that it's not working and it's not going well, so is it that you have to still finish the project, or is it like, okay, like one day you started the project, 1 month later they realize it's not working because of many limitations, not with you as personal limitation, but with the project as a whole? In that case, in industry, do they like directly how do you say give you like a change of project and just tell you, and how is it how easy is it for you then to change it to totally different project then?
Oh, it will be easy. If something is not working, it will be scrapped off very easily. Like industries don't spend that much amount of time, trying to salvage something. It will never happen. And navigating to a different project will also be easier for you because most projects have certain set experiments that you need to do, the first initial experiments. Only if it crosses those experiments, you get interesting results, then you brainstorm and think of what to do next. So in that case, even when you are moving to a different project, your project was today you were doing working with molecule X, and 1 month later molecule X is gone, and now you have to work with molecule Y, you won't actually have a problem. Of course, you have to read about it and the literature survey. So your literature survey is a very fast process in an industry. So you can be asked that today morning, because it has happened with me, personal experience, that I was asked in the morning that these are the 4 papers which are interesting. Like the CEO said that these are interesting papers. Can you just present it at 3 o'clock? I had just come in and it was like 8:30 a.m. in the morning. And at 3 o'clock, I had no idea about what the papers are, what my manager just said, can you just present? So your literature survey, ability to pick up what you need to read from that, because it's already mentioned, you will know about it. The goals are very clear. So you have to do that part is a bit, can be scary when you are just not like academia where you take a day and two and you are reading and thinking about it. That you don't have leverage. But apart from that, if you're moving from project A to project B, and the first initial experiments are usually the same, so you won't have that kind of a problem. Okay, so
Hi, Dr. Payal.
Yeah.
I am a final year PhD student right now,
Yeah.
and transitioning to industry eventually.
Mhm.
So, can you give me an idea about how industrial postdocs work, and how personally feel that it would be easier for a person to transition into industry through that particular way? Never come across anybody in India specifically who is doing the industry to the same. Like if you have any idea. And the second part of my question is for that particular thing or to transition into industry in future, what should be the ideal thing I would be focusing on at this point of time, since there is a problem 10-11 right now.
Okay, your voice cut a lot in between, but I guess at least your second part of the question is about what you should focus on right now in your final year of PhD, since you already know that you want to transition to industry, right? After.
Yes. And a major part of it would be like how to transition into doing getting an industrial postdoc position, and in abroad as well, and in India as well, if you have any idea about.
So about industrial postdoc, I'm sorry, I can't really, I don't know actually. I'm not aware of how that transition happens. I'm assuming, because I've heard some people, for an industrial postdoc, it is an academic question, just the environmental setting is different. Because this is something that one of my professors had told me, that he moved from a PhD to an industrial postdoc in abroad. And the thing about that is, for an industry position, if you're just going for an industry position, not a postdoc position, but a scientist position, let's say, you have these goals that you have to accomplish within 3 months or 1 month or a year, whatever. You have a timeline and you have to come up with results. And if you don't come up with results within those 3 months, you have to justify why you didn't come up with those results. What were the problems and how are you trying to resolve it? Which is very similar to what in an academic setting would be. But in case of an industrial postdoc, the timeline is not so rigid.
Okay.
That's it. So you are expected to produce something in 3 months, but as an industrial postdoc, if it doesn't happen, you are not, at the end of standing at the edge of a sword, where people are like, why didn't this happen? What happened? Okay. If you're an industrial postdoc, you have more leverage of focusing on the literature, on building up a project on your own, rather than what has been given and what you have to accomplish as an industrial postdoc. But it can get challenging also, because it is more about how much funding you also have. For industrial projects, which are client-based projects, usually there is enough money. But for when you are a postdoc in an industry, that might not be the case. So you are also limited by resources and funding. Can happen.
Okay, usually I've seen it in context of pharmaceutical companies only, like
Yes.
Novartis usually takes out
Yeah.
industrial postdoc positions and other companies, but I've never seen that happening in India. I have seen that happening in abroad. I've never seen a single position in India.
Yeah.
Is it like this
India
doesn't
doesn't
work
really
here?
have it, actually, to be very honest. India doesn't have that, at least for biology field. It's not so, like, at least Origin, where I work, there is some form of PhD and postdoc kind of, but it is very vague. I don't know what exactly these people do and who these people are. So yeah, in India, it's not really common.
Okay.
Abroad, yes. And especially with the big companies, like the biggest players in the market, they need people. They need academic people with an academic mindset. So they usually provide those, because one of the professors who said it is, they wanted someone from an academic background who can think like an academic, not like an industry person. So that works for a big company, but it doesn't really work for like smaller companies, and especially in India, where anyway there is a crunch of funding. I mean, how much are PhDs paid anyway, and then you become a postdoc. So yeah.
Okay. And what about I should be focusing on at this point of time?
So at this point of time, you can build your profile. If you can build your profile, if you know seniors who have moved to industry, the first thing is you talk to people, your seniors whom you already know, on what they did and how they approached people, or what is the expectation from your field, from your background, very similar, so that you can relate to it. talk to people. If there is something specific, like you want to join a particular, you really want to join a particular industry, a particular company, then, and they want something very, very specific, like again, data science or something, try to put an effort in learning, or at least doing some workshops and some, internship programs, if you can, at least through YouTube or through internet. Go through some, learn something new, learn some skills, additional skills if you can. But since you're like a final year PhD student, like my suggestion would be that you actually focus on your PhD, finish your PhD, whatever you already know, like polish that further, like in terms of techniques, like whatever techniques you have, that is more important, because you cannot fuck up your PhD defense as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So like right now, if you're very sure that you want to move to industry, I wasn't sure, but yeah, if you're already sure, you can, like, just hone up your technical skills and just read about like how to troubleshoot, if there are any other possibilities in which an experiment might not work, what you have not experienced, like, and talk to people, talk to more people. You can network with some people and ask how they're like, what did they do, what did the company ask, what are the kind of questions that the industry asked. Okay, so
Okay.
you can prepare accordingly that way.
Okay, just the last part of my question. Like, if I want to transition to completely something completely different, like if I want to transition into management consulting, like a lot of people go into consulting after their PhDs, and
Yeah.
so my skills which are directly with me during my PhD state, like working on various biological experiments and stuff, not looking at the soft skills I gain from those experiments, but the hard skills I gain from the experiment, those would not be the direct would not be directly useful to me in a role like management consulting.
Yes.
So what would be the exact qualities people would be looking in me if I transition into that particular set? Moreover, secondly, having a PhD degree would be enough, like would a little bit experience in management part of the thing not be needed if I transition into completely different sector like consulting?
Yeah, you need some experience. Okay, so just having a PhD where you have the hard skills, like you mentioned, won't help you if you are moving on to like management or consultancy. Now, I'm not saying just go and do an MBA, like proper MBA, in order to gain knowledge on management, but you need to have some like workshops. You need to build up on it. You need to train yourself. If you want to give like 6 months to yourself after your PhD, where you learn these skills, it is better. Because when you apply, like if you do not have a competitor, fine, but that in an ideal scenario, that's not what happens. So if you are competing against someone who has an MBA but not a PhD, but is very good at what he does or she does as a management person, your PhD won't hold any importance.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, if you will be, you have to think in terms of whom you will be competing with.
Of course,
they
as
better?
a biology person, I would like to transition into something which is on the intersection of biology and management,
Yeah.
towards cell therapies or towards something in the lane of drug development or anything like that. Of course, it won't be completely in the area of management, and of course, I'll target something at the intersection of both of them. But an additional experience would, I think, be important if I.
Yes. So in this case, if you want to stay in the intersection, what I can suggest is, like, this is something that I do because I didn't know. I wanted to be an R&D. I wanted to do bench work. So I chose a company that is fully R&D. But now I have to do a lot of managerial work as well. That is a part of my job. It came as a part of my job. And now I'm honing my management skills as well. So what you can do is you can start from R&D, what you know the best, what you know you are confident at, like doing bench work or doing computational work, whatever is your, the area of, where you have worked on. So you start with that. Within an industry, it will be easier for you to navigate.
Okay, I get
It,
it.
it will be easier once you get into it. Then you go and talk to the management people, go and talk to the consultant, because the industries usually have them.
Okay.
At least the
Okay.
management people there are. You just go and talk to them. Hey, what do I need to do if I want to, like, get come to your position or something?
Okay, I totally get it. That's, I
Yeah.
think, better way to look at it.
Yeah.
If you'd be comfortable in sharing, what management skills are you currently focusing on, or
What kind of, what's the skill? Sorry.
if you're comfortable in sharing, what management skills are you right now focusing on alongside your R&D?
So management skills right now, I have got like research associates under me, and they're completely my responsibility. I have to train them to
Okay.
become like me. Okay.
Okay.
So that's one job. The other job, which you usually, at least in an Indian PhD setup, everybody does, I think, and they're quite good at it, that you talk to vendors. And
Yes,
you have to come to a negotiation where they'll reduce the prices of items that you're buying. Okay? On a daily basis. You have to do this on a
every day.
basis. Yes. And now, in this case, a lot also depends on what the company's budget is. So you have to take care of a individual budget of a project. So as scientists, you will get like multiple projects which you have to run at the same time. Okay. So in academia, you have a one single question, like at least your broad question remains the same, whether there are like 3 or 4 sub-aims, but your broad question is still the same. Here you have 5 different broad questions,
Okay.
all different. Okay. That you have to manage together. Like
Okay.
whenever there is which is a client based project. In case of pharma companies, you have these client based projects. If the client is coming today unannounced, you need to be prepared on what you want to tell them, what you have done and how you have done it. That presentation is very different from what an academic presentation looks like. Okay, that is something. If you have a GMP facility, like the clean room facility, so now you have to sit with a lot of vendors on a daily basis and think about what is best for the GMP facility. How does the budget align with what you are buying? That is your job. Of course, your manager will do a lot of it as well, but a scientist is expected to do all these things: negotiate, delegate. Delegation is the most important skill that you acquire as a manager. How do you delegate? Because you have to talk to a vendor, you have to also do an experiment. So what do you do? Both, or you delegate your experiment, or you delegate the other way?
We manage both of them, of course.
No, you don't manage both of them. You have to delegate. In an industry, you need to
Usually with a mentor, or usually with a dissertation student, or we have trainees in the labs. So we kind of try to delegate a part of a project through
Yeah,
them.
in industry, you have to do it on a daily basis with a lot of people. So delegation is a very important skill that you learn when you go to an industry. I'm not good at it. I'll be very honest at this point of time. So yeah, but yeah, this is something, because there will be times when these things happen, that your client is coming, and now you cannot just say that I have an experiment to do and I can't be there. So that is your.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. There is a lot of question here, I can say. Adding to Sidesh's question about work-life balance, how is the competition different in industry from academia? The competition is, so in academia, again, it is very isolating. You have your own project. It will move at whatever pace, depending on how the project is going, whatever you are getting. So it doesn't, like your colleagues might have 4 publications while you have 1. Doesn't really matter that way. Even in industry, it's almost the same, I would say. Yeah, somebody might be promoted faster than you, depending on how they have performed. But the competition, it comes at a different level in an industry, because you are actually working in you have to work with the team partner. It is more about the experience and how faster you actually accomplish your goals that have been set for you in an industry. So that's the way. Just a second. Yeah. Okay. And how important is knowing about GMP in India in an industry to highlight your profile? It doesn't matter if you know about GMP facility in India. I don't know. Like there is a GMP facility being set up right next to my office in my company, and I have no idea what it is about. Now, if you're applying to a GMP kind of job, obviously you need to know, but yeah. So in EU, for example, I saw many positions look for it. Okay, like this is not something I'm aware of. I'm sorry, Sudesh, I cannot really answer the question. Okay, Smriti has asked, as a scientist one in industry, do you carry out bench work on your own, or do you get to assign the work to research associate? That's it. Is the work of scientist one a managerial position? As a scientist one in industry, you do both. You can carry out bench work on your own. The first set of experiments are usually done by the scientists always, in order to see how the trend is, what the expected results are, observations are, and then you delegate the rest of the work to your research associates. About the managerial position, scientists 1, 2, 3 do not really have much of a difference, except that the number of projects that they handle and the how intense the project is or how demanding the project is. That's the only difference between a scientist 1, 2, and 3. And of course, the pay. The pay is different. Apart from that, it's mostly same. You get to do bench work, you get to do managerial work as well. It's not purely managerial or it's not purely bench work. You'll delegate both. I have 100 to 150 contacts of vendor. Feel like salesman during my PhD tenure. Right, like for an Indian PhD, I can imagine this. Yeah, you will be able to, like, if you are going to an Indian industry, you will be able to delegate at least this part of negotiations. I hope all the questions are answered. It was a long one. Okay, I did BSc biotechnology and MSc environmental science, and I feel like I'm interested in biotechnology. So planning to take MSc again in biotechnology and then PhD. How realistic the timeline will be after PhD transition? After PhD transition into PhD. The timeline is after PhD transition into industry. It is not about the realistic timeline. You do not really have that kind of stringent timeline in an industry unless you are very old. I don't think so. It won't matter whether you do 2 MSCs or you do 1 MSc and a PhD and then postdoc and then move to industry. It is not about realistic thing here. At least the timeline is not a factor. If that answers your question. Yeah. Cool. Okay, it was a bit, yeah.
Dr. Das, I have one more question. So, with respect to, because I heard about these days about many things about layoffs in US, for example. I'm not aware if this is also happening in India. How safe would it be a job once you get into an industrial job in India, for example? Is it based on a permanent contract, or is it like also not a guarantee or something like this?
Oh, in industry, you don't have the guarantee. There is nowhere written that at least for 3 years they can't fire you. That
Okay.
is something, yeah.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yeah, not like a PhD position where you actually get a proper that 5 years of PhD and all. So layoffs can happen when they want to happen. But if an industry is hiring very actively, it is unlikely that they are going to fire people. Just so you know that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Piyush has raised his hand. Piyush, do you have any question? I don't think Piyush is here. Or yes, Piyush is here.
If Piyush doesn't have any question, just with respect to the hiring process, if an HR asks you about the expected salary, is it do you come out as unhumble and kind of rude if you tell them exactly, or do you always mention range and not the exact number?
It is okay if you would mention a particular amount. It doesn't have to be a range. But don't put it emphatically like I want 20 lakhs per annum, right?
Okay.
Put it that way, like my expectations would be this. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
How you see a PhD degree and MSc with 2 to 3 year person when you are recruiting? A PhD degree always has more weightage any day compared to a master's person. Yes, Piyush, do you have a question?
Yeah. So I asked a question already, but I want to ask one more.
Yeah.
So as of now, I am on the unemployment benefit, I think, which we get here in Europe.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, like, how many months should I give to actually search for a job? Because I am not really interested for a postdoc, since it won't increase my resume any way further.
So
I mean, it's a
do you
person. Yeah.
really like, do you want to like stay in EU, or you have the flexibility that you want to move to some other country or come back to India?
No, I mean, if I am in EU, I cannot move to USA for a job directly because they won't sponsor visa. I mean, I want to work here like for 1 or 2 years before coming back to India.
So I think at least give yourself like, depending on how long you have your unemployment visa still active, give yourself a month or two. Talk to people. I think I think it is better if you talk to people in the companies that you're applying for. Look for, it will be also good if you look for startup companies, not the established one, the ones that are just coming
Yeah.
up. Yeah, just look at them. They might be interested in hiring you. You talk to them, like, not as like, okay, give me a referral or something, that kind. Just talk to them, what are their expectations, that you have this kind of a profile, if they would at all be interested at some point in opening a position, and if you can interview. Talk to these people, like talk to the lower the startups, the emerging companies also.
Sure. Last question. I mean, my visa is till the end of next year. I mean,
Okay.
I renewed it after my PhD.
Okay.
So I cannot work with that visa, right? I need another work visa. Suppose I get a job in Germany or
Yeah,
as of now
I
I am
think
in France.
if you get a job, I think they'll help you. I think there is some kind of a transition that you can make while being in EU.
Okay.
That's what. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So if there are any more questions, please feel free to write to us. Like, there are many people in this team. Write to us at phdsofIndia@gmail.com and we'll get back to you. Okay. It has been a long session, and thank you for your time. I'll take a leave now. Yeah. Thank you so much.